Welcome to Finding Certainty with your host and U.S. Army veteran, Patrick Laing. Over the next hour, you'll learn from Patrick and his expert guests how to attract more certainty into your business and your life. Now, here is your host, Patrick Laing.
Hi, everybody. It's been a little while since I was back here on Finding Certainty. It's amazing how fast time flies by. I say that on every one of our team meetings, and it seems like the year just started and we're already at the end of February. Today's kind of a special day because it's my birthday. I turned 57 today, and I spoke with my team this morning. I wrote a message to them just about how meaningful this birthday is. I made a goal a long time ago that I wanted to retire by the age of 57, or at least be able to retire by then. And we've got some exciting things happening with our company. We'll see how it goes over the next 12 months. But I think it may be a possibility where I could, not that I will, but I could retire if I wanted to. That is a tribute more than anything else to my team, our extraordinary vendor partners, my partners within Certainty Management, Certainty Global. It's pretty humbling to see the quality of the people and the team that we have attracted here at Certainty. So today I'm doing a monologue. I normally do it on the first Wednesday of each month, but I'm actually doing one today, and I'm going to do another one next week. And we are up to the letter Q, as we are continuing our A to Z exploration of principles that help us build and nurture and expand certainty in our lives. I wanted to share a principle today with you that is very near and dear to my heart. You know, it's been quite a journey. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, it's really amazing how much you learn when you teach, right? Or asked to give a talk in church, or to teach a lesson, or give a maybe speak from the stage or something. And I think we end up learning far more than we ever share with our audience. We think about it a lot more than them, a lot longer than them. We have to really, peel back the layers, if you will, of the artichoke, as they say. But even though I feel like a self-professed expert on certainty, we certainly talk about it a lot, et cetera, et cetera. I've learned so much more by unpacking these principles. If you're new to the show, I'll give you a quick recap. I started the show several years ago, but about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I started doing monologues 1 week a month. And the first one came about by accident. I had a guest who wasn't able to log in, and last minute, with no notice, I had to talk off the cuff for the full hour, right? And I talked about certainty. I talked about 3 principles for how to find certainty. If you scroll back through the episodes you find on Buzzsprout, back in July of 2023, you can see that episode if you'd like. Later that year, right around Thanksgiving, I decided to do another monologue on gratitude. And I just really enjoyed it, right? It was fun, not just asking questions and making comments, but talking the whole time. This is something about me, right? I like to talk, but but it was a great message. It was something that was meaningful to me, and I was able to share some thoughts that hopefully helped others along the way. Well, from that experience, I decided to start doing a monologue every month, the first Wednesday of every month. So I decided to go through the alphabet. I actually have an idea of actually putting the principles that I've been talking about into a book someday. But I started with A is for accountability, B is for balance, C is for composure, D is for discipline, et cetera, et cetera. You can look back through the episodes to see what those are. But what's interesting to me is just how these principles of certainty are interwoven and interconnected. I mean, one touches the other. They expand one another. When you develop one, others invariably follow. A few months ago, I focused on humility. Really, it's this powerful, often misunderstood principle that and characteristic. It's a characteristic of great leaders, and it's those humble yet powerful leaders that are confident, fulfilled, and certain. Today, I'd like to take this topic and kind of to the next level, if you were, or if you will, with a principle that, in my opinion, is deeply connected and founded in humility, but it's often even harder to define or even to detect. It's what I call quiet confidence. What is quiet confidence? It's a steady, calm assurance that you know what you're talking about, you understand who you are, you stand up for principles. There's a lot that's packed into it, a lot of layers. We're going to unpack some of those today, but quiet confidence is this steady, calm assurance that speaks volumes without needing to raise its voice. So, first question, what is quiet confidence? Well, just as humility, it isn't always apparent, it's rarely obvious, but quiet confidence is a level of assurance, of certainty, of faith, of composure. These principles we've talked about, right, through my monologues. But it isn't outspoken. It's not overt, it's not obtuse, it's subtle and reserved. It isn't arrogant, it's not loud or showy, it doesn't demand the spotlight, though it is often noticed and respected. Confidence of this nature is, in a very real sense, the self-assured energy of someone who knows who they are. Like I said, they know what they're doing. They know what they stand for. They know what they're capable of, and yet they don't need to prove it. They just do it. I think Nike has done a pretty good job of that reminder for us. Just do it. They've made it famous. And usually you'll find this principle in truly effective leaders. And you'll find that people are drawn to it, right? They want to follow it. They want to follow quiet, confident leaders more so than arrogant, outspoken ones. You know, love him or hate him, whether you are a fan of President Trump or not. Personally, I think he's accomplishing some great things. I think he was more quietly confident. I wish he was. I think he could be. But I won't get political here, but I think that when you forget this principle, it detracts from your ability to lead, to unite people, to bring about great good. And I'm a fan of President Trump. I like the principles, the policies he's implementing in a lot of respects. I don't agree with everything, but a lot of it I do. But I do wish this was different about him. People want to follow quiet, confident leaders. There are a lot of different types of leaders out there, many compelling, charismatic, hard-charging. But the most impactful examples, in my opinion, are the ones who quietly went about doing good. Right? They're the ones who are remembered best, often for centuries. They're the ones who left indelible impressions on the rest of us. And they're typically the ones who brought about or bring about the most change. And not through force, not through violence, but through quiet, inarguable, and even indefatigable ways. They're definitely the leader, the kind of leader that I want to be. I mean, Jesus Christ was, of course, the epitome of this, right? As with all things. I mean, he is our perfect exemplar. He didn't need a megaphone to make an impact. He didn't need to toot his own horn or say, "Look at me." He was never about WIFM, what's in it for me. He was quietly confident. He knew his mission. He knew who he was. He served. He made a difference with the perfect example of quiet confidence. The ultimate example, of course, right? The only time I can think of when he got angry and voiced it that we're aware of was the day he cleared the temple from all the money changers, right? The movie or the series The Chosen, I thought, did a great job of illustrating this thing. If you haven't seen The Chosen, go check it out. It's on Amazon. I can picture him doing even this, right? Even though he was angry, or at least he was not happy, but he did it without shouting or losing control, right? Truly, Christ quietly, confidently impacted everyone around him. And he changed the world in the process, right? He knew who he was, why he was there, what he had to do. He was meek, humble, yet also powerful. What a powerful example of how each of us should strive to be in our own circles and in our own ways. Quiet confidence and humility, they're strengths, they're not weaknesses. I know some people think that if you're quiet or if you're humble, that you're weak. That's not true at all. They're two sides of the same coin. True humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less. Let me say that again. It doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less. Quiet confidence is what fills that space. It's the calm certainty that emerges when ego steps aside and self-awareness steps forward. Like I said, in a very real sense, this is what personified Christ. It's the same characteristic we see manifested in many of the most impactful leaders throughout history. So I thought the best way to dissect this topic today might be to do exactly that, to look at several examples throughout history, examples that I think personify quiet confidence. I thought we could go from the oldest to the most recent, and there's 9 more that I want to introduce to you today or remind you of today. Some may be new to you, many will be familiar. We'll call them our quiet and confident top 10. Right? I'll see if I can get through this list in the next, 48 minutes. I think I can do it. So, looking back in history, one of those that I've always loved and always stood out to me was Abraham Lincoln. He died in 1865, age 66. Died too early, as we all know. Who knows what he could have accomplished with another 20 years, but still, we all, I think, are familiar with this story, but I wanted to remind you of a couple of points. During the Civil War and beyond, Lincoln was known for leading with empathy and moral clarity. And he was known for leading and being a leader who was controlled. He didn't toot his own horn. He didn't have to be in the limelight. His 2-minute Gettysburg Address is one of the most powerful examples in history and of brevity, right? and of strength. Those two, you don't think they'd fit into the same pocket, but they do. He didn't have to be long or effusive or self-aggrandizing. On the contrary, he was short and to the point, and we remember it to this day as one of the greatest speeches of all time. It was powerful. He was quietly confident. Another example, President Lincoln once drafted an especially strong-worded letter, right, to one of his generals, General Meade, and then he chose not to send it. He showed emotional discipline. That was my 4th monologue, right? D is for discipline. I try this myself sometimes, right? Writing out long emails to download or vent, but then sending them. I accidentally sent one to someone the other day, one of my partners, that wasn't supposed to go to him. He got the whole download, which I wish I hadn't done, but he probably learned a few things. But it was much more emotional and wordy and detailed than I wanted it to be. But I do try to do that, to download or to vent, but then I don't send them, right? It allows me to get things off my chest, think them through without damaging relationships, losing credibility. I think it's a pretty good rule to live by. I learned that from President Lincoln. It's one of my favorite U.S. presidents. Yeah, just really one of the most extraordinary examples of quiet confidence. Another one, and I'm sure you could have guessed, is Mahatma Gandhi. Right? He died in 1948. He was 79 years old. Gandhi was obviously another great example of this certainty characteristic. Right? He led India's independence. Not through violence, not through shouting, not through anything, but consistent and steady resistance, right? Non-violent resistance. His 241-mile SALT March in 1930 led thousands to the sea to defy British assault monopoly. It sparked mass civil disobedience, led to up to 100,000 arrests, all led by Gandhi, all of it quietly, without violence. Earlier, in South Africa, Gandhi had organized ambulance corps for both Indians and British soldiers during the Boer War. He led out quietly, confidently, maintaining morale and calm during the pressures of war. He's another one of my favorite quietly confident icons. Next one that came to mind for me was Eleanor Roosevelt, President Roosevelt's wife. She was a shy lady. She was a shy first lady who turned human rights champion. She reminds me a little bit of Melania Trump. In 1935, she toured the impoverished coal mining communities throughout West Virginia. She advocated for aid. She connected wealthy friends with struggling families. She did all of this quietly, confidently, consistently, much of it through storytelling, right? Vivid storytelling. Quiet confidence doesn't mean you can't be vivid. You can't be passionate, right? You can't be even emotional. Just means you don't do it over the top. You don't do it loudly. You don't shake your fists and cause disunity and problems. You just quietly put your head down, go to work, right? Later, as a chair of the UN Human Rights Commission, Mrs. Roosevelt and her thoughtful persistence ended up guiding the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It was a complex project of diplomacy. She led that. She was quiet. She was a compelling advocate that is remembered to this day. One of the neatest parks or monuments you can go to is there's one in Washington, D.C. There's a great statue of Mrs. Roosevelt. I love it. Go check it out if you're ever in Washington, D.C. Kind of along the same political lines, one that stood out to me, and ChatGPT helped me with this one a little bit, was a guy by the name of Bayard Rustin. He died in 1987. He was 75 years old. And many people probably haven't heard of Bayard Rustin. You maybe haven't, right? But he was the strategic genius behind the 1963 Civil Rights March on Washington. He was basically Martin Luther King's right hand, his COO. I think of where I would be and how lost we would be without our COO, Victoria Foster, here with our company, Certainty Management. I mean, he's the guy who got stuff done, right? He handled the logistics. He handled fundraising. He handled coalition. He oversaw coalition building. Like I said, in a very real sense, he was MLK's right hand. And despite being an openly gay black man and facing extreme prejudice for both his sexual orientation and his race, right, he didn't give up. He persisted. He quietly, confidently kept working in the background and supporting Reverend King and the movement as a whole, even after Reverend King was assassinated. He kept going, and he helped shape history and the progress. I love that. I love people like Victoria Foster, Jill McCauley, Liz Deal, Brian Pointer, these guys on our team, these icons on our team who are examples of quiet confidence. I love seeing them just work behind the scenes. They're not in the limelight. They're not out tooting their own horns, as I keep saying, right? They just go to work and they serve. I love that. Rosa Parks is another one. She died in 2005, 92 years old. On December 1st, 1955, Miss Parks, she quietly refused to give up her seat. She was on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, and that sparked the Montgomery bus boycott. She didn't get mad. She didn't get violent. She just quietly sat in her seat and is remembered to this day for her stand. It was an admirable and a righteous stand. I think we would all agree. Beyond that moment, she didn't just stop. She was an active NAACP secretary. She planned legal cases like the Scottsboro Boys and supported the boycott for organizing carpools and hosting meetings. And she later said she wasn't physically tired, but she was tired of giving in. And she quietly made that statement and was an integral figure in the civil rights march, the progress, the movement. I've always loved her as an example of quiet confidence. We, of course, have to talk about Nelson Mandela. Again, one of my favorites. After 27 years in prison, President Mandela emerged and incredibly was able to do so without any bitterness. Think about that. I've heard that story many times, and I've wondered how in the world he did that. Right? Did he feel bitter and just not show it, or was he truly able to forgive and forget? I would have liked to ask him that question. Personally, just by seeing him and what he did in his life, I think it was the latter. I think he had developed within himself the ability to reach higher, to truly rise above, right, to let go. I believe he understood and made the conscious decision to control the natural man within him. I remember a lesson I received in college, and they said that we can control how we feel. Some people don't think, I can't control how I feel. We can. It's just our thoughts dictate our feelings. If we change our thoughts, we can change how we feel about them. Most negative thoughts, they taught us, and I learned, are distorted, or they're exaggerated. We lose our job and think, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get a job again. I'm going to be homeless. Well, it's possible, but that's probably not the case. We tend to extrapolate and expand negative thoughts, and they lead to our negative feelings. Perfect example of that, I've shared this before, I believe, but the perfect example of that is two employees who are sent home from work. There's something going on, there's chicken pox or something like that, COVID maybe, but they are sent home to stop the pandemic from spreading. Maybe they were showing signs or whatever. Yeah, they felt okay, but they were contagious. So their employer says, we're going to send you home for 2 weeks with pay. And then we need to get you checked out, and then you should be able to come back. Well, the first employee thinks, I can't miss 2 weeks of work. I've got deadlines. I've got projects I need to do. I've got an overflowing inbox. And they go home and they're miserable for 2 weeks. The other person says, 2 weeks with pay? You kidding me? Sweet. They didn't say I couldn't go fishing. All right. He goes home, rents a bunch of movies and junk food, goes fishing, has a couple friends over, watches movies, even gets some work done. Comes back totally recharged and comes back to work. Both of them come back to overflowing inboxes, deadlines and projects they have to cap up. But one comes back depressed and deflated. The other comes back recharged and invigorated. What's the difference? They had the exact same scenario, but one chose to see it differently. And as a result, they felt differently. You see this when you're tired, you're getting ready for bed, and suddenly an old friend shows up at your door, or a family member, and you're suddenly wide awake and you talk for hours. Right? Even when we're physically exhausted, we change how we think. It can change how we feel. And this is key to, I believe, dealing with any sort of adversity, like President Mandela did, Gandhi did, Lincoln did, etc. It's key. It's also a key to being able to do so with quiet confidence. It's not to say we never feel hurt or offended or even devastated, right? It's not to mention just irritated or frustrated. It comes down to how we respond. And the more we respond with control, with maturity and love, i.e. quiet confidence, right? The more it helps and the more it becomes a part of everything we are and everyone we touch. I don't mean touch in a creepy way. I mean everyone we impact. We may have to fake it until we make it, and sometimes we do. But over time, it becomes more than just an action. It becomes a characteristic. It's not just practice, it's principle. It becomes a part of who we are. It becomes even automatic. We don't even have to think about it anymore. Mr. Mandela famously said, "I have walked that long road to freedom." He was setting a tone of reconciliation. It was a long road, but he chose to overcome it, to rise up. He went on to negotiate South Africa's first democratic constitution, and as president insisted on a two-term, this is interesting, a two-term limit maximum, showing again his moral clarity and also his restraint. It says a great deal about the man that so many around the world admire, and they came to respect, admire, and love him. And I think he's most definitely one of those leaders that exhibited quiet confidence and yet impacted millions of people in the process. He died at age 95. Maybe it's a secret to health and longevity as well. I think it's quite likely. There's two other quotes from President Mandela that I really love. He says, "There is universal respect and even admiration for those who are humble and simple by nature and who have absolute confidence in all human beings, irrespective of their social status." And also he said, "May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears." Again, we choose how to think, which affects how we feel. May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. There's no surprise why he's one of my favorite historical figures, political leaders, influencers. I mean, I have a lot of them, but he's definitely right there at the top. His quiet confidence was inspiring, to say the least. So 3 more to go. Cesar Chavez died at age 75, died in 1993, so not too long ago, but age 75. He led farm workers in California through peaceful strikes and massive boycotts, remaining, just like Gandhi, remaining nonviolent throughout them all, despite multiple clashes. He dedicated his life to improving the conditions of farm workers all across the United States, not just in California. But he did have a significant focus on California's vast agricultural regions. In 1968, he held a 25-day water-only hunger strike to renew commitment to nonviolence. Isn't that interesting? Gandhi did the same thing on multiple occasions. A hunger strike is a quiet way to oppose or to stand up for or to bring about change. In 1988, he fasted again, this time to spotlight pesticide dangers. Both actions drew national attention. Very much like Mahatma Gandhi, he quietly led the charge. Right? He effected change on a national level, even global level, all the while advocating for quiet, nonviolent approaches. Maybe not quiet, but you see streets named after Caesar, Martin Luther King, and others all over the country today. And I believe it's because quiet confidence is not only impactful, but it's remembered. Here's another good one. Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers. He died in 2003 at age 75. Soft-spoken and gentle. Mr. Rogers was a much-beloved television personality, known for his subdued and selfless style. Even when he testified before the Senate back in 1969, that was the year I was born, he testified to defend PBS funding. And in just 6 minutes, it's a very short testimony, but in 6 minutes, his calm demeanor, his sincerity, and his authenticity won support for children's programming for decades. I think it's a great example that demonstrates how quiet, serene, steady authenticity can move hearts and minds, even at the highest levels. There's one more example that I thought might be worth mentioning. Angela Merkel. She's currently 71 years old. She's still with us. She served as Chancellor of Germany from November 22nd, 2005 to December 8th, 2021. She led Germany and the EU through multiple crises. I mean, the Eurozone collapse, Brexit, migration waves and challenges, COVID-19, and the list goes on. And she did it without ever grandstanding. She was known to listen attentively. She learned things swiftly. She adapted her approach. She exemplified servant leadership. And it really prioritized results over rhetoric. She's a great example, I think, of a leader, and it's a credible example. I mean, one that we could all learn from. And let me repeat this last paragraph. She was so respected and impactful because she did 3 main things. She listened attentively. She learned swiftly. Quiet confidence doesn't mean you have all the answers. Great leaders are open to input. They're constantly looking for ways to grow and learn and adapt and improve. But she listened attentively, she learned swiftly, and like I said, she adapted constantly, like a GPS, recalculating, right? She exemplified servant leadership, and that prioritized results over rhetoric, as I said. She served for 16 years. This makes her the second longest serving chancellor in German history. And her longevity is unusual, mostly due to Germany's parliamentary system. I mean, maintaining the confidence of a fragmented Bundestag, that's their Germany's federal parliament, across 4 successive elections. It's a major political feat. And after each federal election, the Bundestag can elect or re-elect a chancellor, provided they maintain the parliament's confidence. I can't help but wonder if her style was one of the main contributors. I'm pretty confident it was. Be that true or not, internationally, Chancellor Merkel has been recognized by many as one of the world's most powerful leaders during her tenure. We're going to go to a break real quick. Let you learn a little bit about us while we learn a little bit about you. I'll be right back. Thanks for being with me here on Finding Certainty. It's good to be back. Look forward to lots more conversations.
Certainty Management can help create more certainty in your life with our deep discount health insurance options, even for 1099s, part-time employees, volunteers, and more. Pay less to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your team. Call 888-684-3122 for a free quote today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, T-E-A-M, like Mary.com.
If you're a nonprofit in need of funding, we can help. Certainty Management is a cost reduction firm that also helps churches, schools, sports teams, and other nonprofits raise unlimited zero-cost funding. Best of all, you don't have to sell anything or ask for donations. Call 888-684-3122 to learn more today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, T-E-A-M, like Mary.com.
You're listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing.
All right, I'm back. Had to stop and drink some water and wet my whistle so I can keep going. You heard our ads that talk a little bit about how we can help with lower cost benefits. We can help nonprofits raise unlimited funding, zero cost funding. We don't charge anything for our help in that space. Companies doing a lot of great things with benefits, with cost reduction, with senior health care, and most recently with power for AI data centers, manufacturing, hospitals, defense, and more. That'll probably eclipse everything we do because there's such a demand for it. And it's funny because our number one manufacturer in that space, they're a multi-billion-dollar multinational corporation, and yet they are quietly confident. They don't do any advertising. They don't shout what they do from the rooftops. In fact, they ask us not to do social media, not to cold call. Our entire business is word of mouth, and yet they know how good they are. Their technology is 5 to 6 years ahead of anyone else. They are supremely confident. And the CEO, who we've introduced to several clients now, he doesn't get loud. He's not braggadocious. He's humble. He's quiet. He's confident. And it's really invigorating. If you or anyone you know is looking for power, I'll just put a quick plug, reach out to us. 888-684-3122. We can help. We can install it quickly, independent from the grid. We can even pay for the entire thing if you like, create a PPA, a power purchase agreement, with or without blended capital. The list goes on. I wasn't going to mention that, but I thought of our friend and manufacturing partner, and he's a great example of quiet confidence, and I love that. So let's reflect on what this means. And what is this quiet confidence these leaders and these figureheads I've been talking about each demonstrate or have demonstrated in their own ways? I mean, number one is these leaders favored action over flashy speeches. They showed steadiness and resolve without fanfare, right? They all exhibited moral clarity. Their moral clarity, their humble demeanor, it just conveyed this inner conviction that I really appreciate. It's an unwavering belief that it really guided them throughout their life. It's a principle that was inherent to who they were. Their presence, whether delivering a short address like President Lincoln in his Gettysburg Address, or stepping onto a crowded bus and not giving up their seat, or entering a hearing or guiding a nation, it carried profound weight without the need for volume or grandstanding. From President Lincoln's emotional restraint to President Mandela's reconciliation and forgiveness to Chancellor Merkel's longevity, their stories really demonstrate that true leadership is built on calm, consistent conviction and courage. So let's bring in a few just practical tools, okay, from a modern day leader. Another example that I think is a great example of quiet confidence. You may or may not be familiar with her, but Natalie Dawson, she's an extremely successful businesswoman, executive. She's known as a communication expert. And I thought I'd share with you, as part of this monologue, 4 or 5 quick principles or lessons that she teaches that I think can help you and bless you in your life. Let me tell you a little bit about her so you know that she knows what she's talking about. Natalie Dawson is an American entrepreneur. She's an author. She's a business leader who's best known as the co-founder and president of Cardone Ventures. It's a business consulting, it's a private equity firm that she launched in 2019. So only, 7 years ago, alongside Brandon Dawson and Grant Cardone. Their company specializes in helping business owners scale their operations, achieve personal, professional, and financial goals. She manages over $1 billion in client businesses, and she's generated more than $100 million in revenue. It did that within just its first 3 years, so without external funding. So pretty impressive, to say the least. She was born April 12th, 1993. It's my daughter's birthday, actually. Kind of cool. She's born in Ohio. My mom was born in Dayton, Ohio, so a little bit in common there. But she studied at the London School of Economics, where she developed a very strong foundation in operational and financial management. Natalie's built a reputation for her expertise in team development. She's hired and trained and led thousands of employees throughout her career. But she's also known for her leadership style. It emphasizes aligning teams with business objectives to drive measurable results, but to do so in a way that is not over the top. She's a best-selling author. She wrote a book called Teamwork: How to Build a High-Performance Team, which offers a really comprehensive guide to creating engaged and aligned teams. I love that word, alignment, right? People are much more aligned if they're following a leader who's just quietly confident. She talks about scaling her businesses. She hosts a very popular podcast called Building Billions, where she shares insights on entrepreneurship, leadership, personal growth, and communication. She has a very large following on YouTube and Instagram. So I wanted to mention her today because she seems to understand this principle of quiet confidence. Right? She put out a video recently that's called How to Speak Like the 1% Elite. And in this video, she outlines 5 lessons that reflect and I believe reinforce this principle of quiet confidence. Her first lesson is to speak with certainty, not hesitation. You know, I love that one, right? Certainty is what we're all about, right? My show, it's our companies, the ways we're trying to give back. It's all surrounding this principle of certainty. She says remember that quiet confidence doesn't mean you're tentative or hesitant. She says, speak with certainty, not hesitation. She says, it doesn't mean you're weak. On the contrary, Natalie points out that people follow those who are strong and sound sure of themselves. I think we'd all agree with that. When you use phrases like I think, and maybe, or I believe, they weaken your authority, whether it's with children you're raising, customers, clients, partners. Quiet confidence says, here's what I know, not here's what I hope. You may think you're being, communicative or even considerate, and, those things are important. But she insists, and I would agree, that you need to make sure that while you're collaborating, you're also not coming across as weak or uncertain, unsure, or vacillating. People want to follow leaders that are certain. Like I said, I love that word. So she says, second, project your voice, even if you're soft-spoken. You don't need to yell, but you do need to be heard. Confident people don't apologize for their voice or presence. They stand tall. I got to remember that. I have backache. I have back pain, so I tend to slouch a little more than I should. But she said they stand tall and they speak with purpose. You can be gentle and respectful and still command the room. This is a good tip. She says, speak slower than you think you should. It's a good one for me to remember. She says, you should also speak slower than you think you should. Fast talking often comes from insecurity, and slowing down shows thoughtfulness and self-control. It gives your words weight. The confident pause speaks as loudly as the words themselves, more often than not. I've had many people tell me that they like the sound of my voice, not just my words. They say they find it calming and reassuring. That's a nice compliment. I appreciate that. It's pretty good feedback, and it is a pretty good goal when you're speaking, when you're leading people, when you're negotiating or diffusing difficult situations. I mean, maybe I should have been a hostage negotiator. Haha. But seriously, I did work in counterintelligence and counterterrorism, and the same thing, that controlled, quiet, consistent approach was always what won the day. But seriously, if you think about it, could what you're saying be even more impactful by slowing it down? By choosing your words carefully? Even thinking about the tone of voice that you use? My premise, my conjecture would be that it would. She says, make eye contact. It's easy to do when we're talking with someone, or even when I'm doing an interview. It's harder to do on a monologue. I do have an outline here. I'm following it along. That is helping me remember what I wanted to talk about. But so it's hard because I like keeping eye contact, and it's difficult to do. But Natalie reminds us that eye contact builds connection, credibility. When you look someone in the eye, you're saying, I'm here, I see you, right? And I'm not afraid to be seen. They're pretty important principles. It's one of the most underrated tools of quiet, confident, impactful, and effective communication, just having good eye contact. Always finish strong, she says, whether it's a conversation, a meeting, a keynote speech, like the one I just did in Dubai. I was just in Dubai, United Arab Emirates in December. I gave a keynote speech about about what we're doing with power for AI data centers. And the ending is important. You need to finish strong. She said, confident communicators land the plane. They know their message. They close with clarity, oftentimes a call to action, or at least a challenge or a statement of encouragement and faith. It's a reminder that certainty is built in the way you end, not just in how you begin. So let's talk for a minute before we run out of time here. We're approaching the end. Let's talk for a minute about the pros and cons of quiet confidence, because they do exist. In fact, let's address the cons first. We'll end with the pros, and on a positive note. You can be overlooked, right? In a world that's just obsessed with charisma and flash a little bit, quiet strength can at times go unnoticed and may be misinterpreted. Some may assume you're unsure or timid, when in reality you're simply composed. It may take a little more time to be heard. Maybe it takes some effort to be understood, but in the long run, I assure you it is worth the effort. It requires inner work. Quiet confidence doesn't always happen naturally, but I don't know that it ever does. It's earned, rarely inherited. It takes effort to acquire it. Nobody does this overnight. It usually comes from long years of hard work and heartache, right? And trial and error and failing forward. I mean, that's where you gain this strength. Are you willing to put in that effort? That's my question for you. Are you willing to keep at it until you get there? It's a fact. It often does come from trials and self-reflection and growth. And all of these things take time and attention. Many people are too rushed or impatient to ever get there. Their achievements, their relationships, they often reflect this. Some of the pros are that you become a trust magnet. I mean, people trust those who don't need to boast. You become more steady when you're under pressure. Quiet confidence is grounded. It doesn't get rattled too easily. It does inspire others. It sets the tone and allows others to feel safe, to feel seen, and to feel supported. And it's adaptable. Just like Chancellor Merkel, we talked about her adapting and how that was one of her strengths. It's rooted in self-awareness. It adjusts, but it does so without losing itself. We always have to make adjustments. We're recalculating all the time in our efforts at Certainty Management, Certainty Global, Certainty Holdings, Certainty Veterans, right? But we adjust and make adjustments without losing ourselves. And I love this last thought. We are rooted in self-awareness. Can we be rooted? Can we be firm? Can we be flexible and adaptable and humble without losing ourselves? I believe we can. And it is the balance between these things that makes for a really strong leader, a quiet, confident one that may change the world, definitely change lives. There's several real-world applications. Let's talk about where you can apply this principle. In leadership, it's most definitely applicable, right? Your team doesn't need a loud leader, one who gets upset and yells and screams and raises his or her voice. No, they need a clear one. They need a confident one. They need one they can rely on. Quiet confidence creates space for others to rise, and they never feel threatened by others' success. In sales, people rarely buy from the most aggressive salespeople, and if they do, they regret it. They buy from the one who listens, who understands, who responds with calm certainty, who resolves objections, doesn't overcome them. People love quiet, confident salespeople. They most certainly enjoy buying from quiet and confident salespeople more. They also tend to buy again and again, and you can also be dang sure they're more likely to send referrals to you if you exhibit this trait. In our families, it's equally important, if not more so. As a parent or a spouse, quiet confidence provides stability. Your loved ones don't need to know you have all the answers. They just need to know that you are present and grounded and moving in the right direction. Even kids, including teenagers, we had 4 at one time in our household. It is not easy, but kids need to see quiet confidence. They need to see consistency, stability, and resilience. It's one compliment I could give to my ex-wife, Emily, and my kids' mom. She was resilient. She was consistent with them. She was stable. She was a rule keeper. She was firm. And my hat is off to her. She's a great mom and a great example of this principle. They say that a soft answer turneth away wrath. It also helps mold children into adults who want a relationship with their parents. And that's not always easy, but it really works. It has long-lasting effects if you can remember it and figure it out. I highly recommend a book called Bonds That Make Us Free by Dr. Terry C. Warner. It teaches how to avoid letting negativity, self-deception, damage our relationships. It talks a lot about this principle of restraint and maturity and quiet confidence. It's one of the best books I've ever read, and on parenting, on leadership, on business. In fact, it can do more, in my experience, to teach you how to accomplish this. Just about anything I've ever come across. Again, it's called The Bonds That Make Us Free by C. Terry Warner. In adversity, in trials, we especially need this, right? Life gets hard for all of us. None of us are able to avoid the complexity and the challenges of mortality. When we can remain calm and confident, even when we may not feel that way 100%, our calmness, our quiet assurance and resilience becomes a lighthouse for others, like that city on a hill, right? For others to follow. It doesn't mean that we're not struggling. We all do at times. Some of the things we've gone through, I've gone through, all of us have gone through, are just almost overwhelming. It just means that our light and our identity are stronger and bigger than the storm. We don't have to be loud to be strong. The most certain person in the room rarely needs to say it. Practice confidence without performance. Speak clearly, calmly, and with purpose. And let your actions whisper what your ego wants to yell. In closing, I invite you to practice this characteristic, this principle. Practice quiet confidence in your own life. Whether you're in a boardroom, a kitchen, or on a rally call, right? That's our preferred replacement for Zoom. It's a web conference built on the blockchain, unhackable. It's pretty cool. If you want to know about that, let me know. But even if you're on a web conference dealing with an issue at work or an employee, take a breath, slow down, make eye contact, sit up straight, say less but mean more. As the saying goes, confidence is silent, insecurities are loud. I totally agree with this. It's a challenge for me because especially when we meet new team members or clients, we do want to highlight our good points. We want to illustrate why we're a good bet. So we do share some of our achievements, some of our accolades in order to establish that fact. And I always struggle with that because there's a fine line between boasting and highlighting, right? You're building relationships of trust, but you also have to share facts to get there. And so, but I always feel a little bit like we're aggrandizing ourselves. But the basic rule of thumb is it true? And less is more. When your confidence is rooted in truth, in experience, and in authenticity, you don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to belabor a point. You just need to speak. People will see it in your eyes and they'll hear it in your voice, and they will, most importantly, experience in your actions. People will hear you and they will listen. Thank you for joining me today on Finding Certainty. If today's message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, don't forget to check out Natalie Dawson's website or videos or tools. You can go to thenataliedawson.com. I'm not sponsored or anything. I just think it genuinely helpful. Please like and share and comment on Finding Certainty. I love it when I see people repost this from our YouTube channel or Facebook or LinkedIn and put it on your channel. I really appreciate it. It helps the show grow. It helps get the word out to more people. And I do believe that our interviews and these monologues can bless lives. So until next time, keep walking in certainty. Remember, the world needs more leaders who don't need the stage to lead. Remember, too, that certainty is out there. You can find it. We can help. If we can do anything to assist, we'd be honored. I wish the very best. Have a great rest of the day. I'm going to have a great birthday. Going out with my wife tonight. Dinner and a movie. Going to see that new movie, I Can Only Imagine. It's a sequel. If you haven't seen it, go see the first one first and come see the second. It tells the story of Mercy Me and their multi-platinum hit, I Can Only Imagine. It's it's going to be good. So have a great rest of the week. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you taking the time to spend an hour with me today, following along if you have. If you're new to the show, welcome. Hope you come back next week. It's every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Even when I'm following notes on a monologue, I can't keep perfect eye contact. Know that I'm doing it because I care and I want to make sure I stay on track. And I want to share these lessons that I've learned throughout 57 years on Earth. Right? 40 years in business and sales. I've had some extraordinary mentors. Our team at Certainty, the executives I work with, the partners, and our team in general are made up of some of the most just outstanding people I've ever known. And I see lots of examples of quiet confidence within our team. They inspire me. I want to be more like them. I keep trying to not just lead by example, but learn from their examples. And I'm just humbled by it. I'm just blown away by the people I've been blessed to associate with. And if you want to learn more about us, you can find us at certaintyteam.com. Reach out to us, 888-684-3122. We have 10 divisions that can help improve your profitability. If you're looking for power, as I said, we can help and we can fund it. Maybe you have a student loan that you're struggling to deal with. We can help eliminate that. If you're no longer in school, if you have at least $25,000 in student debt, we can eliminate it for you. And if you or anyone you know has a church, a school, a nonprofit, a foundation, a children's hospital, any of them that are looking for funding, We can show you how to raise unlimited funding with zero costs, without asking for donations, without having to sell things, get grants. We use a principle we call the reciprocal fundraising, and it is extraordinary. Thanks again for being here with me. I'll get off my soapbox, but I appreciate you. I look forward to ongoing conversation. Next week, I'm going to do another monologue, since I normally do them the first Wednesday of every month. Next Wednesday is the first Wednesday of March. So come back and see what R is for what. I won't say it now. You got to come back and listen next Wednesday, 11 a.m. Come back and listen in to see what R is for what. It's one of the most important messages I've shared, I believe. I attribute most of my success to this principle. It is life-changing if you implement it. So I'll see you next week. Thanks for being here, and I wish you the very best.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode of Finding Certainty. We hope you've gained some more insight into how to create more certainty in your own business or nonprofit. Join us next week for another taste of the Certainty Experience. Until then, we wish you greater certainty in all that you do.